perfect. I must have it.
Sadly, sir, you can't.
What do you mean can't?
It's illegal, sir. This fish is protected by the great state of California.
Give me it.
You know, first of all, we are doing this for her, okay? Because neither one of us wants to get divorced. And secondly, I know you're the big marriage experts. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot. Your wife is dead.
Oh, they've got a class on how to write jokes.
Oh, don't take that. I dropped it after the lesson on setups. The professor is so old.
It's the Al Travis Show, and good news, bad news. We have Senator John Hinderaker on with the American Experiment, and here's why I say that, John, because I love you, you know that. Since I start reading the American Experiment, getting the magazine, following you online, I get your once, twice a week email. I know enough to be hurt. I think ignorance is bliss. There's the thing. Here's what I'm throwing at you. You guys have the fraud monitor. You've been following all this fraud that's been going on, and it just keeps dinging up and dinging up and dinging up. Now the story is we could get to $1 billion under the Walz administration, and yet he still thinks he can run for governor. Are there a lot of people that just aren't following the American Experiment? There's just a lot of people that just would keep your eyes down and if you don't look up, you don't see the bad stuff. How is it possible?
Yeah, I don't know, Al. That's a great question. So acting U.S. Attorney Joe Thompson told the press, what was it, yesterday or the day before maybe, that by the estimates of the federal investigators, $1 billion has been stolen from the taxpayers here in Minnesota on Tim Walz's watch. Now that's a striking number, you know.
Maybe it's too big. Maybe people can't understand what $1 billion is. That's astronomical. And that isn't waste either, right? That's not waste. This is fraud. This is fraud. People's.
No, God only knows how much our government wastes. We can talk about that too if you want. But this is crime. Oh. This is flat out criminal fraud. And the latest one that came to light, it turns out that there is a Medicaid program, and Minnesota apparently was the first state to start up this program under the rubric of Medicaid. And I guess we were proud of that at the time. I don't know. There's a Medicaid program, got nothing to do with healthcare, but you can get paid for advising people about housing. And I think the parameters are you can spend up to 150 hours with each individual client at $70 an hour talking to that client about how he or she might obtain housing or better housing.
150 hours.
It's unbelievable. And so these fraudsters that saw that, and they immediately set themselves up in business, Mohammed, housing advisor. And what they would do is they would either collect names of homeless people or make up names. This is very kind of random names.
Yeah, we do this on everything.
Names, And then they would put together fictitious records of counseling these people on how to obtain housing, for up to 150 hours and submit their bills at $70 an hour to the state government, and they'd get paid. And so when the feds started investigating this program, they would track down some of these people that actually existed, homeless people. Yeah. They would say, well, I never met that guy, or I met him once, but we didn't talk about 150 hours. Certainly not for 150 hours,
Oh man.
And so, this is just naked crime, naked fraud with no serious effort even being made to conceal it. And our state government happily writes the checks.
How did they balance a budget, John? Because like you say, with this one, with Medicaid, and most of it, I think it was 50-50 match with the federal government, but they suggest it's going to take about $2 million in a year. That's what we're going to spend on this. And it gets to $200 million. How is there not a red flag that's saying there's 100 times more people needing 100 times more hours than we ever expected? Maybe we should look into it. Or is it literally, I don't care? Because that's the same with the autism centers. We had $1.7 million set aside for autism centers. It's up to $250 million a year. Did we just not have any clue how many kids had autism? Do we not look into how we could be off so far? And how do we just write the checks and still call our budget balance?
Well, there's been a lot of publicity around the incredible increase in the number of kids being diagnosed with autism, and a lot of speculation about what's causing all this autism. And there may be other causes at work too, but I think the most obvious answer is that a diagnosis of autism opens the spigot and causes checks to be written. And
Yeah.
where there's money, people will follow. And where there's money, people will commit fraud. And so all of these programs are just riddled with fraud. The Office of the Legislative Auditor did an investigation of the Minnesota Department of Education in connection with Feeding Our Future. How could these people write $500 million in checks, to pay for feeding meals to non-existent children?
Yeah.
How could that happen? And what the legislative auditor concluded that it really had to do with the culture in state government, the culture in the Department of Education. These people didn't have any sense that they are stewards of other people's money. That
Yeah.
this is the taxpayers' money and they're not supposed to waste it. That was the farthest thing from their minds. They thought their job was to write people checks. And whether the checks are legitimate or not, whether the people are qualified for the program, whether they're legitimate or just fraudulent, apparently was a subject of no concern. And I think we see that across all of Minnesota state government.
Well, $1 billion into this, and no one's got a strongly worded letter in their files as far as we know. But let me ask you this. Representative Kristen Robbins, chair of that Fraud Prevention State Agency Committee, has written a letter to the federal government asking them to come audit the Minnesota Department of Human Services just because of the stuff we talked about. I personally love the idea. Let's find out what's going on and let's really bust this thing down. Everybody should be willing to sit up to an audit. But will Minnesotans do anything? It seems that $1 billion doesn't affect us here in Minnesota. If they found another $1 billion, does it change anything? Does this even change the governor's mind about running? He's being audited by the federal government. He knows $1 billion has walked out the door, and he's still running for governor. Doesn't seem to bother him.
It's quite remarkable. We are just wrapping up our summer tour. We have only one more event left. It's going to be next week in Buffalo. I did Coon Rapids and Edina earlier this week. We had 200 people in Edina. Great event. And one of the things we talk about in the presentation in the summer tour, we've polled Minnesotans on these spending and waste issues several times, including just a month or so ago for the current issue of Thinking Minnesota, which ought to be in your mailbox by now. It's an awesome issue. And we've asked people 4 times now over the last 5 years or so, what's your best estimate of the percentage of Minnesota state government spending that is wasted? Not fraud, but waste, right? And the median answer that we get, in other words, half say more, half say less. Median answer, 33%.
Wow.
Well, we've got a state budget of about $66 billion. So if 1/3 of it is being wasted, that is $22 billion of waste per year. Now, it's hard for me to put that fact that Minnesotans believe tens of billions of dollars are being wasted every year, right?
Yeah.
But they don't seem to care. That is the thing that's just very difficult to reconcile.
Well, I presume the folks that go to your meeting, again, Buffalo's where it is at on the 29th at 5:00 in Buffalo. The folks that go there must be those that care, right? Are you getting folks saying, what do we got to do? Are we getting folks, are these folks who are just getting their eyes open for the first time? Like say, I've been with you now for a while watching the American Spirit. I might know too much. It drives me crazy. My blood pressure is going to go up every time another story comes out. Are those people just getting on the bandwagon? Are those the folks that are there helping you all the way?
Well, the sorts of people that come to our events are generally already very much engaged. They follow the news, they know what's going on, they follow our stuff, they care. If they didn't care, they wouldn't be coming to events like this. The broader public, it's really, on the one hand, you can say it's hard to know how much they have followed the news, how much they are aware of some of these things that have been going on, the various frauds, the $1 billion that the acting U.S. attorney has now estimated. But the median Minnesotan, for whatever reason, he follows the news enough to believe that 1/3 of our government spending, $22 billion a year, is going to waste.
I don't remember exactly what the number was, but you remember that whole Boston Tea Party thing where like they raised taxes like 3 cents on a barrel of tea and the world goes to heck. You can sit here and say, I think $22 billion a year is just wasted. No problem. How have we gotten to this point? America, I mean, my God.
Al, if you look at some of these means-tested programs, welfare programs, and we do this in the presentation, we spend an average in Minnesota of over $40,000 in means-tested programs per person in poverty in our state. That's almost double the national average. If we just spent the average amount of the 50 states on people in poverty, welfare programs, it would save us $10 billion a year. So, and we can't print money as a state. Every dollar our state government spends has got to be represented in tax revenue. And it's kind of a mystery why people, on the one hand, think so much of their money is being wasted, and on the other hand, for the most part, are not really fired up to do anything about it.
I know. I got to go to break. You don't make me any happier. AmericanExperiment.org. You want to be educated on what's going on. AmericanExperiment.org. We're going to go to break. I want to find out if it could get any crazier this year as the legislature, the Senator Mitchell trial is over. She was found guilty. Another special election. We're going to be up to 6, 7, 8 special elections. We'll talk about it with John Hinderaker right after this.
Think about it. A famous politician once said, "You're entitled to your opinion, but you are not entitled to your own facts." But in a world full of AI and fake news, where can Minnesotans find the facts? Center of the American Experiment is Minnesota's go-to source for fact-based analysis and common sense solutions for taxes, energy, public safety, and our kids' education. Visit AmericanExperiment.org for more information. Think About It is brought to you by Center of the American Experiment, Minnesota's think tank.
Dust from gravel roads and driveways does more than make your car dirty inside and out. It gets down into your lungs, and it's bad for your health. Now there's an environmentally friendly solution for your dust problems. It's called DustLock. DustLock can control all your summer dust problems with just one application. Protect your vehicle and your lungs. Learn more at dustlock.com.
The Al Travis Show, the last place you can go and hear all sides. Respectful, thoughtful, and grateful.
My comment about AmericanExperiment.org. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. Be ready for that. Same thing with the Department of Human Services. They get audited. American Experiment will show you what's going on. Real quick, John. This year, 2025, has just been absolutely nuts. Real quick. We had to start 3 weeks late because the Democrats didn't want to show up because of the numbers. They kind of pledged themselves in on their own. The Supreme Court got involved 3 or 4 times with what our business is. Then we don't get done on time. We run late. Then you have the shootings with the Hortmans and the Hoffmans. Just a quick reminder, we had a special session for the Heinzman Dietzig seat. She passed. Then we had the seat where the guy won, but he didn't really win because he didn't win in the elections. We had a special election there. Then Eichhorn goes and does this crazy stuff with the underage prostitute, supposedly, so he quits, and then we have a special election for that. Mitchell now has been found guilty. We need a special election for that. Yesterday, Monday, Senator Anderson passes. We need a special election for that. Fatah, who's a senator, is trying to run to get the mayor of Minneapolis. That would be another. We could be looking at 6, 7, or 8, and depending who wins, if it's in Woodbury, 8 or 9 special elections in 1 year, John. You do this for a living. You've been doing this for a living. Has any year ever looked like this? This is cray-cray.
Well, we certainly didn't have a year where a member of our state Senate got caught burglarizing her stepmother's house, hiding in the basement. And actually, she hung in there through 2 legislative sessions. Let's just remind people, after she got caught red-handed burglarizing her stepmother's house, she didn't resign, and nobody in her party wanted her to resign because they didn't want to have a special election. They wanted her to keep voting through the 2024 session. So they had a vote on whether Nicole Mitchell would be allowed to vote for the rest of the session. And the vote was 34-33, with Nicole Mitchell casting the deciding vote in favor of allowing herself to vote. So that's what happened in 2024. As soon as the session was over, all of the Democrats said Nicole Mitchell has to resign. Tim Walz said that, Ken Martin, the DFL chairman, and they all said she's got to resign, but she didn't. She hung tough. She said, no, I'm going to go to trial. And then she got her trial continued so that she could participate in the 2025 legislative session. And again, it's 34-33. She cast the deciding vote dozens of times, maybe hundreds of times. She's the 34th vote. So when the session is over, she finally has her case go to trial. The trial only lasts for about a week, and the jury's out about an hour and a half. She testified. They played the body cam video. I'm sure many of our listeners have seen it. I mean, it's really pretty unbelievable. And when she testified at the trial, she testified that she had lied to the arresting officers, which, she had no defense, and she was convicted. It's kind of unbelievable. People used to say of the Balkans back in the day that the Balkans produce more news than can be consumed locally.
That's no kidding.
Well, people are saying that about Minnesota now. Minnesota produces more news than can be consumed locally. People around the country follow the news that's coming out of Minnesota, and they say, what in the world is going on in your state?
And we can't do much about it. She's found guilty now, but evidently you have to have a special session to boot her out, because even if you're a convicted felon, you still get to stay in the Senate. They're not going to call a special session. She says she's going to take a couple of weeks, get some things tidied up. You know how it is. You got other things to do before you hit jail if you got to go to jail. So she's going to hang around, keep the insurance, get another check in. She does not actually have to quit up until like February, when they have the first day of session where they could boot her. I don't know why she would not change her mind and say, you know what, I figured this out. I can hang for a while. I got a few more loose ends.
Well, I think she probably thinks she's hung long enough. I don't know. Wow. She says she's going to resign in a couple of weeks. I assume she will. And because
that'd be the first decision she made that made sense. From breaking into her mother's house until now, she hasn't made a normal decision yet. Well, now you're going to give her credit for it?
Keep in mind that by putting off the trial for over a year, she kept that salary coming in.
Well, that's what I'm saying. And if she's doing it for the kids, I could use a few more checks. Let's go another 6 months. I don't know what they're going to do with her. Sir, I love having you on the program. You do have the Buffalo meeting. I want to make sure people know that. Minnesota Doge, cut the waste, save the budget. July 29th. Go to AmericanExperiment.org. Take a look at the events tab. I appreciate you very much coming on the program, especially when you're out traveling. Appreciate you a ton.
Great to be with you, Al. Have a good day.
Always a pleasure. John Hinderaker, President, American Experiment.
Think about it.